else had like one hell of a week, or is that just me? It's not even that there was like necessarily more things that were happening that were like crazier than usual, but like the magnitude of those things, at least for me, was like so many WTF moments. That's what I'll say. So many moments where people have just seemed to, well, be losing their goddamn minds. I cannot even with people anymore. I'm at the point now where I just want to dive into a cave and never come out again. And I'm sure everyone in the chat and watching right now, you're perfectly lovely and you're not the people that I'm talking about. But like in general, I've had it. I'm done. I'm done. I am never helping another person again unless they pay me money to do it. I am sure as shit. I'll tell you this right now. Never helping another political party again. That and you know what? You know what's funny about that? And that's a whole other story for a whole other day. And I promise I'm not going to dwell too much on this in this stream. I was actually saying to myself last week, I was like, Carlin, you have now learned never, ever, 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 ever to help another political party or another politically driven organization again. I thought like I had peaked out with like gays against groomers losing their damn minds. I thought I was like, okay, this is as bad as it's ever going to get. No, it got worse. It really did. And if you haven't seen my posts on redpilldiaries.substack.com about how every single person in the Mises caucus in New Hampshire got purged out of the caucus 2 days ago when half of us were trying to effing help them, you'll understand why. That is a whole other stream for a whole other day. But you know what's funny is I wasn't even sure I was going to be doing this stream today because I in my head thought that tonight was like a movie night with like the ladies in the Libertarian Mises Caucus. No, that's not tonight. That's next Thursday. I apparently don't know how to read a schedule. I was like looking at the date today and I was like sitting here a couple hours ago and I was like, I got to go take a shower. Obviously, I got to tell people the stream is canceled, all this stuff because like I was like, I got to get ready to go to movie night. And then I was looking at the calendar and I was looking at the movie night invitation and I was like, that's not the same day. I really had convinced myself that something that is happening next Thursday was happening tonight. And in my head, I was already at movie night, hanging out with the women, watching a movie, not dealing with any of the bullshit that the husbands are engaging in, not my husband, but other husbands. And then I was like, okay, well, it's not movie night tonight. I guess I got to do happy hour after all. So happy hour we will do, guys. Welcome to happy hour. Happy hour is a stream that I do on Fridays where we watch a woke training from start to finish. We watch the boring bits, we watch the cringy bits, we watch all of it because I want people to see the full context of what these people are teaching. And yes, yes, I could really use a drink. Thank God it's happy hour. I might have one and or four of those right next to me. I thought my glass fell off the desk for a second, but no, it was just an empty water bottle. Um, so we will be getting to the drinks expeditiously. But first, I really want to introduce you to the training. Hey, Jen, thanks for the super chat. And by the way, guys, some of you, well, no, we're not. Akshay, why would you tempt me like that, Akshay? Victor, like truly, like I do need to say this. Victor is truly the hero of this week for so many reasons. So very, very many reasons. But absolutely, I would say that Victor is the hero husband of this entire situation. But guys, let's dig in and let's look at what we are watching for happy hour. Let me just get it up on the screen right here. I found us what I think is going to be an interesting little training for today. You guys know how I just love it when woke trainers put children on the internet. And I found a training called Claiming Space. How queer students of color see themselves in the anti-racism movement. And this is a pretty like I'm not even sure really much about this organization. I kind of had to pull this up on the fly, so we're doing this. We're doing it live. This is an organization or a YouTube channel called We Are, and I guess We Are works for working to extend anti-racist education. Well, that's very nice. It's one of those YouTube channels that doesn't have many subscribers with videos that don't really have that many views, and those are sometimes some of the best videos that we watch. The videos on the unseen YouTube channels, the videos that only like 17 people have watched before us. I really do enjoy those the most. Those tend to be the videos where they saith the quiet part out loud, where they give us more information than they probably want us to know because they don't think that we're ever going to watch them. And so I actually don't have that much information about this particular presentation because they didn't put a whole lot in the description, but you can see this is like an uber woke channel. We got a critical race theory town hall right there. We've got all sorts of like queer educators of color. Another critical race theory one. Summer camp. What's going on there? We got a lot of stuff going on, and I feel like this in particular, this presentation in particular. Let me just like I'll move it. I'll screen. There we go. This one in particular has like all of the buzzwords that one could possibly want. We have queer, we have students of color, we have anti-racism. I'm surprised we didn't get a good I don't know what other trans. I guess queer probably covers trans or non-binary. We could have gotten some other ones in there. And so I think this is going to be a little bit of a doozy presentation for today and I'm really looking forward to it. Now I already see people asking about the bingo card. And yes, we will be doing closed captioning. Don't worry, I got those captions on. So let's talk about our bingo card. Oh, hang on. Oh, shoot. I forgot to pull it up. Hang on 1 second. Look at my Substack for a moment while I log into my account and get our bingo card up. Unwoke bingo. There we go. Aha. There we are. So we got our Unwoke bingo card here. Let me pop this Unwoke bingo card into the chat. I know Eric is really hoping for a land blessing today. We'll have to see, Eric. Maybe you won't even get land blessing on the bingo card. And oh, bot, you are such a liar. Come on. And so the way Unwoke Bingo works is you follow that there link, you click generate card, everyone gets a unique card, you get a free square in the middle, and then we're going for lines or we're going for corners, or if you want to be crafty and do one of those flowery things around the center, I mean, I don't really care. We can make up our own rules sometime. But when you get a bingo, please shout out bingo in the chat. You don't win anything. This is just for fun. It's just to keep us engaged, make sure we're paying attention, stuff like that. But you will get a hearty round of applause in the chat if you do get bingo. And then once we get a single bingo, we are going for blackout bingo after that. So that'll be pretty great. That's Unwoke Bingo. Make sure you play along. As always, please make sure you subscribe to my Substack. I do have to apologize. The Substack has been a little light on content this week because reasons. All right. There's just been a lot going on. Um, I will tell you, I do actually have a bunch of articles that I'm working on that I will be publishing over the next couple of days. So the week is not a total wash yet. And I do content extremely regularly on the Substack. All the Unwoke content you need to know. I try to curate it. I try to explain it. I try to really break it down so you guys can kind of cut through the noise and figure out what you want to pay attention to. My Substack is Carlyn, Karlyn .substack.com. You can subscribe for free, but if you do want to support the work I'm doing and get access to exclusive perks like movie night, you can sign up as a member for $5 a month, $50 a year. You can also sign up as a supporter on Locals, where I'm at kb.locals.com, or on Patreon, patreon.com/unwoke. All of the links are in the description below, and you can check out all that good stuff on those sites. Hang on. Oh, gosh. Forgot to pull another thing up. But I am still trying to hit my monthly goal. I need to get about 30 some odd new paid supporters for the end of the month to be able to keep on track for where I want to be for the goal. And in return for becoming a paid supporter on my Substack, you're going to get some perks. You're going to get 2 Zoom calls every single week with me and my supporter community. We do them on Mondays at 7 p.m. We do them on Wednesdays at noon. You are also going to get access to our weekly movie night as a part of the supporter Discord. And as James Jones in the chat said, The movies are very good, and we are watching a very good movie this week. This week, we are watching Goodfellas. I could you know what? This wasn't the original movie we were supposed to watch this week, but apparently everyone in my community sucks at looking at calendars, and we didn't realize what day it actually was. And so the movie night this week actually got double booked. And I wanted to watch American Beauty as the official start of my month of narcissism, but we had already scheduled that we were going to watch Goodfellas for the what like the Italian month. I don't even know what. There was a reason we were going to watch Goodfellas. And so I being that it is my month of narcissism, I feel as though I was very gracious and I gave up my movie night so that we could watch Goodfellas because I think Goodfellas is an amazing movie. And you know what? After the week I've had, can we all just admit that it's going to be nice to watch a movie where people get like shot by gangsters and we can work out our aggression like via Goodfellas? I think this is going to be a bonding experience for all of us. We will be watching Goodfellas on Sunday at 8 p.m. in my supporter Discord. If you become a paying member on my Substack, on my locals, or on my Patreon, you will get access to join us and it'll be great. We do movie trivia, we have discussions, we do all sorts of great things, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to that tomorrow. One other thing I want to make sure you guys are aware of before we check out the beer is I have recently launched a different Substack. I have like 8,000 Substacks, and this Substack is all about art. Unwoke art, to be quite specific. I have launched a new art store where you can get merch with cool pictures on them, called unwokeart.com. And if you subscribe to my Substack, which you are not automatically subscribed to if you subscribe to my other Substack, I wanted to keep it separate because if you don't want to subscribe to this one, you don't have to. But here is what you will get when you subscribe to this one. Every single time I put a new design in my Unwoke art store, you're going to get a message with an update. And in that update, we're going to have, well, the design. And you're welcome to share it out on the internet. This is my latest one. This is Joe Biden's presidential portrait. I am really proud of this one, actually. I thought that this was pretty great. It makes me laugh anyway. Um, and so you can share out the meme if you want to, but then you can also get it on t-shirts or hoodies, or I put this one on a color changing mug. And so I'm really happy about that one. You can get stickers, you can get framed prints, you can get posters, all sorts of good stuff. And when you sign up for Unwoke Art on the Substack, you will get an email when I add new stuff to the store so that you can check it out and see the designs and maybe be inspired by the designs. Or if you want to pick up some merch, the merch, of course, goes to support the work I'm doing. And I got to tell you guys, I'm just having a ton of fun with this. I'm gonna be starting an art like an Unwoke art contest in the next couple of days where I'm going to invite all of you to create some designs. And what I'm trying to do is be a little irreverent about it, be a little silly about it, be like doing satire. Like with this design, I've got Joe Biden playing the fiddle while the White House is burning down behind him. I've got some other great designs in the politics series. Let me show you this one. I love this one. I made this one last week too. This is a dragon burning down the Capitol. I just love this one. This one makes me laugh so much. I've also got where is my Mitch McConnell thing? I've got Mitch McConnell as the Grim Reaper, and I labeled it an honest politician. So I'm just having a ton of fun with Unwoke Art, guys, and I want you guys to have fun with this stuff too. I think we can really create some interesting designs, and I'm going to be starting a contest in the next couple of days where you can contribute your own ideas for Unwoke Art, and you can do like I'm doing AI art, and AI is scary. Once you understand AI, like you can make some really cool stuff, but you don't have to do AI if you don't want to. If you want to draw, if you want to paint, if you want to color, if you want to knit, if you want to sew, if you want to quilt, if you want to do any other type of craft where you're creating something, that's entirely up to you. What I love about AI art is that I love that it opens up the playing field for so many more people to engage and to be creative. And I think that creativity is part of who we naturally are as human beings. And I love that we now have so many more options. And I just want to see the ideas. I want to see you guys take the visions that you have in your head for different concepts and make them into an image, make them into something fun, make them into something intriguing, make them into something that provides commentary on what's going on in the world. And some people are poo-pooing AI art, and I can understand that. Like, there are artists that take years and years and years to develop the skills that they have, but you know what? For me, this is first and foremost about coming up with a great idea and a great concept and being able to articulate an image that presents a vision. And AI has given us the power to do that where other forms haven't. And, again, if you want to draw, if you want to paint, if you want to do something else, I paint, man. I love art. I have so much original art in my house. I don't even have enough places to hang it up. So I'm a very big proponent of original art and paintings and things like that. But if we can help people to find their creativity, I think that's a good thing for everyone. And as where did he say? Eric said it. Art is a great form of rebellion. That's exactly right, Eric. And on the homepage of Unwoke Art, I've got woke means authoritarian, unwoke is the counterculture. Unwoke Art offers cultural commentary with an anti authoritarian point of view to inspire you to embrace life as a creative, empowering experience. And I absolutely mean that. I think art is one of the things that we can use to change culture. And so if we have these tools available for us, then why not use them? Mass Genocide says, "In for this, where is the website if we want to learn how to use the AI?" So there are so many different AI websites out there, guys. There are so many different ones, and I would just start searching around, just start playing with them. This is how I learned how to use it, and I'm still learning how to use it, but just start playing with them. Even Gab now, Gab has their own AI. So I would just, check it out, like just do some searching. There are like a bajillion different AI tools, and just experiment and have fun and don't worry about the end result and just start playing with it. And that's really what I want to inspire with this. I want to inspire other people to play and to be creative and to bring a concept into the world because it's really, really fun. Thank you for that super chat, Mass Genocide. All right, guys, with all that out of the way, let's talk about beer, shall we? Now, of course, because this is happy hour and because it has been one hell of a week, god damn it, I do have some delicious beer, and per our happy hour tradition, you will be voting on which beer I drink first. Now, let me walk you through our options today. And I'm not going to drink all of them because I'm not, that crazy. But we're going to do some of them. So the first one I have, and this one, I think I've had this one before, but I don't remember. I definitely was attracted to it because of the name. It's called Little Bunny Foo Foo, and I was like, "That's fun." This is from Chaplin, Maine. It's a strawberry sour, and I don't think it gives us any more information than that. So, Little Bunny Foo Foo strawberry sour is option number 1. Option number 2 is Juice Maze, and I was definitely attracted to the bottle on this one. I thought it was really pretty, and this is from Pipe Dream Brewing, which I think is a New Hampshire brewery, if I'm not mistaken. It is. It's in Londonderry, New Hampshire. This wild sour ale is exploding with fruit flavors aged on 900 plus pounds of blackberries, raspberries. It will leave your palate twisting and turning, searching for that next juicy sip. That is Juice Maze. Our next one is going to be an old favorite. I've had this one before. I don't even think it has a name, but it has a crazy, crazy can, and that's kind of fun. And this is from Froth Brewing Company, which is one of my favorites in terms of like the totally smoothie like beers that, like, if we're honest about it, aren't beer at all, but they taste really effing good. So I don't even think this. Oh, Liquid Rad. It's called Liquid Rad Lollipop, and it is a beer with raspberry, blackberry, and marshmallow. So that's that one. And then our last one, and I did like this one for the can. It's called Great Notion with a bear that has some muffins on it. What a great design. And this beer is called Blueberry Muffin, rather aptly. And it is a tart ale with blueberry and natural flavors. And it is from Great Nation Brewing Company, and that's in Portland. We have to forgive them for being woke, but that's all right because maybe they still make a good beer. All right, guys, so those are our options. Let me put it in the chat. Again, we've got Little Bunny Foo Foo, which is a strawberry sour. We have Juice Maze, which is a sour ale with blackberry and raspberry. We've got Rad Lollipop, which is with the raspberry, blackberry, and marshmallow. And we have Blueberry Muffin. And well, you guys, oh God, I so wanted to see Cocaine Bear. I really do want to see it. Whatever, Barb. All right, guys. While you're voting on which beer you would like me to drink first, let me get this presentation up and running and we can get ready to go. Please mount that like button for me if you have not already. You know, all of the milkshake beers that I see are like IPAs, but I've definitely had a lot of beer with lactose in it. And I do like the beer with lactose in it. I do. I think it tastes really nice. But the ones that are specifically labeled milkshake beers, I always see them as IPAs. Like it's like an IPA milkshake beer, and I don't like IPAs, so I haven't done that. Um, but I do like the beer with lactose in them. All right, let me get this pulled up. Because you're right, the lactose does make it a little bit more creamy and filling. Got a nitro Pepsi going on. All right, that's a great choice. Let me see how this poll is going. Oh, it's not even close. Not even close. You guys want the Rad Lollipop beer. All right, fine. Let me get all these put away. And I have a little cooler down here, so let me put the beer in the cooler. All right. If you're drinking something fun in the chat, let us know what you're drinking. What's the alcohol percentage? I think it's only like 5% or something like that. I don't see it on here, but I don't think it's a lot. I think it's like 5%, something 5-6%. Ooh, banging all over here. Let me get this poured for you guys. Kind of happy about this one, actually. I really wanted this one. That's why I bought it. But there it is. Looking like a nice smoothie beer. A malt beverage, some would say. It's so good. Do you know what it tastes like? It tastes like those pastries that you get that's like flaky pastry on the top and the bottom, and then they have raspberry and cream in the middle. That's what this tastes like, guys. So cheers. Happy hour. I'm glad that you guys have all joined me for this weekly masochistic exercise. Let's go ahead and get started.
Time with us tonight. I'll see you all when it's time to close. Serena, please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I am just so delighted and thankful to see all of you here today to learn more.
Hang on, we got a super chat from Jen. I watched Cocaine Bear yesterday. It is going to be, it was doing his best to be like, please, mommy, let me be like Lake Placid. I've heard some people really liked Cocaine Bear, and I heard some people did not like Cocaine Bear. So if you've seen the movie, let me know. I would like to watch it. I think it looks like it could be really good, but it also could go horribly, horribly wrong.
About queer students of color and how they see themselves within the anti-racism movements or within multi-anti-racism movements, right? So before we get started, I would love to have our panelists introduce themselves. So let's start with Mariah.
Hello, I am Mariah McCann. I use they, she pronouns. I am one of the panelists, and I am currently a student at UNC Chapel Hill.
Oh, thank God.
Majoring in African American.
Okay, so it sounds like when they said student, they might be saying college student, which I think is far preferable to high school and lower. But I do want to remind you guys, and if they're college students, they're technically adults. But I would like to ask that we do not make fun of the young people on this panel. Okay. And I understand you're going to say, Carlin, they're over 18. Yeah, see, Bot is already saying so we can make fun of them. I would strongly prefer if we didn't make fun of the younger people on the panel. Make fun of the adults all you want, okay? But here's my thought process. These kids, because I'm sorry, they are still kids. Maybe I'm just old, but I think that college students are still kids. They have been lied to by every single person that they've trusted in their life to teach them how to exist in the world. Okay? Yes, exactly. Everyone under 25 is dumb. No offense to anyone watching under 25. I know I have some very smart viewers under the age of 25. You guys are the exception. Okay? And you damn well know it too. If you're under 25 and you're watching my channel, you know that you are the exception to like the rule that everyone is under 25 is like normally dumb. So please just refrain from making fun of the kids. I don't think it's a good look. I think it can be used against us later. I don't like it. Everything you say is public on the internet. If you want to make fun of someone, reserve it for the adults that taught them these concepts. All right? As a personal favor, I really appreciate it. Savrit says rogue information can profane the intellect. Well, how are we defining rogue information there, Savrats? Let me know. All right, let's keep going.
Studies. However, I did come out of Durham Public Schools, and I previously interned with We Are, and I also am going to be enthusiastically doing some more work with them in the upcoming semesters. So yeah, that's the work I've been doing at the moment.
Thank you, Mariah. Love to hear that you are a UNC student. I graduated in 2018. So let's move forward to, or let's move.
She just graduated in 2018. I'm sure this woman is a lovely woman. So let's say she was 21 when she graduated from college. 2019, 22, 2020, 23. She's like 26 years old. Wow. All right.
To Danielle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Johnson Webb, and I'm the Director of Equity and Community Engagement at Carey Academy. I am also a proud graduate of North Carolina Central University, and I'm super excited to be here tonight. As it was starting, I was listening to the music and just getting into the groove, but I think it's important for everyone to know I'm a passionate educator for all students and just excited to be here this evening in partnership with We Are. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Let's move to Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I use they, them pronouns. I go to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'm majoring in American Studies, but I'm minoring in African and African American diaspora studies. I'm part of a community-based organization called CJA on campus that does community justice, anti-racism, and abolition work. So I'm very passionate about anti-racist work, and I am a panelist tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, let's hear from Eric.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric. I use he, him pronouns, and currently I serve as the LGBTA Resource Center coordinator at North Carolina Central University, and I am also a proud double eagle of North Carolina Central University. So happy to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you all so much. So to get started, I guess I should introduce myself. Once again, my name is Serena Fulcher. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Program Coordinator with the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. I also was not only a Tar Heel, but I was also an Eagle. I'm working in the LGBTA Resource Center, and I worked very closely with Eric. I would like to go on with our first question, and I'm going to direct that to Mariah. Mariah, how do you see yourself or your identities represented in anti-racism movements?
I feel like I was talking about this with one of my roommates just previously, but I think that the first thing that comes to mind is immediately many of my like queer friends who are actively engaged in anti-racism work, like Jasmine, working with CJAA. I have endless other friends that are also queer and doing anti-racism work, especially within UNC's campus. I think about
Wah
my
wah,
friends
no land
who are,
acknowledgement.
I think, queer or not queer that are engaged in work with BSM, Black Student Movement, on UNC's campus. I think, especially recently, there's been a lot more work in making sure that queer identities are centered in conversations that are about anti-racism and that are about Blackness. And I think that's been really lovely to see. And I also think that in terms of culture and cultures that are Black and cultures that are queer, you see like all those intersections and overlaps, which is like really lovely. And I think that's also where I see that happening.
They're all Black,
Thank
so
you,
they probably don't
Mariah.
have to do a
I
land
think your
blessing.
answer
They're
was very
probably
insightful.
exempt from land
I
blessing.
believe when I was a student, I didn't see myself as much within the anti-racism movement. So it's really good to hear that you are seeing yourselves and seeing your friends be a part of the movement and having the intersection of their identities included. For our next question,
Intersectionality, that was the other word that was missing from the title. They could have gotten all the buzzwords in there.
we're going to move to Jasmine. What are the most urgent issues for queer students of color in the Triangle, North Carolina, and beyond?
Yeah, when I first saw this question, I think I thought a lot about it, just because I'm not from the Triangle, but I recently moved here for school. And I think that some of the most urgent things would be the Don't Say Gay bills and the anti-CRT laws that have been passed here recently. I think definitely threaten the way that we understand queer students and the anti-racism movement in general.
Did that happen in North Carolina? See, here's the thing. I have been really trying to weed myself out of like the minutia of politics and all of the different bills all over the country. And so I haven't been paying attention to the bills that have gotten passed really. Like I glance over it and do like a cursory look. It's just not my main focus anymore. Like did that happen in North Carolina? I really have no idea. I mean, she thinks it does. I'm sorry, they think it does, but that doesn't necessarily mean it did. But they seem to be under the impression it did. Oh, they did. They did. Random person with no name. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, was the Don't Say Gay bill that she referenced, was it basically like the Florida one where the bill literally doesn't say gay? I'm guessing. Jen says, Dr. K, already annoying me. I'll be back later. I'm gonna go and listen to 80s music. Well, you have fun, Jen. I hope you have a great time. And then Savrit says, the individual self is responsible to detect and determine what is rogue information and genuine knowledge. Oh, so it's like false perceptions, false reality versus like real. The rogue information is now embedded in the minds of society. In the truest sense, it's a spell. Savrits, you have never been so right in your life. There are a lot of people under a damn spell right now. A lot of people on all sides. Everyone has lost their damn minds. And it's all based on what's going on in their head and how they're perceiving reality and the stories they're telling themselves, which may or may not have any basis in reality at all, but they convince themselves that it does. And then they make stupid, boneheaded decisions like purging everyone out of a goddamn caucus in a state. I know that's not what you were talking about, Savrits, but that's where my mind went. I appreciate the super chat though. You know what, bot? Like, I hope not. I really hope that we are more. Part of the reason we do happy hour is to hinge ourselves back into reality of what is going on by actually listening to people talk that we disagree with. And so I don't think we're under. I mean, there would be people that would say you're all in my cult, but I don't think that that's real.
Queer people and queer people of color have always existed. And the fact that we try to erase them from our school systems and from young people having that representation, I feel like is really, really.
And this is a good point from Patty. Patty, thank you for pointing this out. Patty says the triangle as they're referring to it, it's the research triangle in North Carolina, which is Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and Durham.
Really dangerous. So I think that the most important thing is to make sure laws like this don't get passed and get repealed.
Thank you. Mariah, I would love to hear your standpoint on this question as well.
I think I definitely echo Jasmine in what they've said. And I think it's important in relation to, like, don't say gay and all of those things. And even in relation to anti-critical race theory work, and the way that that often like is grouped with like, or includes sharing stories about queer voices. I believe in the panel from last year, and hopefully someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but Jabari.
In any anti-CRT bill, they probably aren't going to say much of anything about sexual orientation or gender identity. I don't know of a single anti-CRT bill, correct me if I'm wrong. She's saying all these anti-CRT bills, they'll impact queer people too. Well, no, not if you actually read the content of the bill. They usually don't. They usually have very, very strict definitions about what it applies to. And guys, if your state has passed any sort of anti-CRT bill, please make sure you read it. They're usually pretty short, a couple of pages long. They're going to give you a list of definitions. Please make sure you know what those bills actually ban and, more importantly, what they do not ban. Because I would argue that most of those bills don't go far enough.
Sellers was present, and he has done a lot of work in regards to like yes, Jabari Sellers was present and has done a lot of work in relation to like being able to tell stories about queer characters and queer characters of color, queer characters that are Black. And it really is so important that students hear those stories, because I think a lot of, as we grow up, we formulate who we are from like our times at school and all the things that we learn. And I think it's difficult to form a full sense of who you are as a person if you aren't able to learn a full understanding of like the amazing people that exist. So I think it's really important that teachers are able to teach and teach well these like identities and stories.
Thank you. I really think that was a great segue. I'd love to hear from an educator's standpoint. So Danielle and Eric,
Yes.
I'm coming to you.
Let's hear from an educator's
What do you all
standpoint.
think are the most urgent issues for students, queer students of color?
Hey, Eric, do you want to go or do you want me to? All right. I to be honest, I think there's so many, right? I think especially with young adolescents, life is complicated, especially the times that we live in. But I really think being seen, right? And I want to piggyback on what Mariah said with faculty, especially teachers, faculty being intentional about what we're putting in front of kids. What books are we putting in front of them? What math problems are we putting in front of them?
Okay, I don't mean to sound like a bitch, but like, trans, yay or nay? I really don't know. And you know what? If if this person is trans and I don't know, good for them. But I'm curious. And if they're not trans and I just insulted them, I apologize. Yasmin says no. This is why I feel bad. See, I was wondering, I was thinking that I was like, is it trans? Is she yeah, she's okay, she, her, is she trans or is she a lesbian? Patty says lesbian. Milo says lesbian. Yeah, you guys are probably right. See, you just don't know anymore. It must be so confusing to be like, I am so glad that I'm married and I never have to date again. And even if, God forbid, and I don't think this would ever happen, but even if my husband and I ever split up, I don't know that I would ever date again. I really don't. It's way too confusing now. I would have no idea what to do. Sean says, Under the woke framework, anti-CRT bills do impact gender identity because they view everything using intersectionality. Yeah, Sean, I agree with you on that, and that's a really good point. I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, the woke framework can define literally anything as like anything they wanted to. So maybe we just hinge back into reality and just make sure you're reading the definitions of bills. That's all I'm saying. Make sure you actually understand what's in the bills. Just because they want to exist in a world of lunacy does not mean that we have to exist in that world of lunacy, all right? But I do agree with the point that you're making.
You know, what scientists are we putting in front of them, and the intentionality around that? Because when I speak to young people, you know, they come to us with the issues and all that, but at the end of the day, it's, I'm not being seen. I want to be seen. I want to felt. I'm a believer that, you know, it's hard for schools sometimes to create a safe place, but they want to feel some sort of comfort, and that they belong. And so I think as we talk about what we can expose students to and what they need to see, it's, to me, it's the importance. And when I hear them, it's, they want to be seen. You know, and I think seen means respected and belonging and all of those things.
I like her
But
nails. I'll say
my
that.
hope, especially as an educator, is that we're able to continue to do that. And I'll be honest, especially kids of color outside of the LGBTQ identity, right? How do we also work with those students to know that everyone deserves to be seen? So for me, I think when I'm with students, that the core of that is, you know, Miss D, they're not seeing me. Miss D, they're, you know, and that can go along to many things. But for me, that core is, how do we create a learning environment that's comfortable and where I can feel seen?
You know where I'm going to give these people credit, and maybe this is just top of mind for me at the moment because of all of the, quite frankly, bullshit that I've had to deal with this week in regards to people not listening to what is actually being said. I'm not suggesting the left is good. I'm not suggesting the left is perfect. But what she just said was about like students saying, you're not seeing me, or you're not hearing me, or you're not like acknowledging who I am and what I'm actually saying. I actually like that there is an emphasis on listening. And maybe they hear what they want to hear. Again, I'm not suggesting they're perfect, but I really think that pretty much every other side that is not the woke left at this point would benefit from a similar perspective in regards to listening to what people are actually saying, in regards to reading what is actually written, not making up words, in regards to looking at things in the context in which they're presented, instead of snipping a single sentence out of a 1,000-word essay and taking that one single sentence and twisting it to mean something it didn't mean, when you look at it in the context of the essay in which it was written. I think the world would be, quite frankly, a much better place if people were paying a little bit more attention, listening, trying to understand people's perspectives, than in just waiting to shout them down and to find something to be upset about and to create something to be upset about if they couldn't find something to be upset about before. That would be my preference. Maybe I'm crazy.
And to that, I
Who is
would
this?
add, just in addition to
Did he
seeing
introduce
our young
himself?
folks, is also listening to our young folks, because a lot of what I'm seeing specifically
Like a
at
magic person
Central
just popped
is
into
my
the
students are
presentation.
leaving high school
I wasn't prepared.
out proud, existing as who they've always been, which I think is fantastic. So by the time they get to me and they say, okay, Eric, Mr. Eric, this is who I am, it's my job to just say, okay. And we move forward as such. And I think that a lot of times, specifically in a lot of
I just wasn't
POC
paying
communities,
attention.
but speaking specifically to Black communities, when we talk to young folks,
My
we
bad.
try to shelter them away from conversations about sexuality and try to frame it as, I just want to keep my kids away from sexuality in general. I just want to make sure that my
Yes.
children aren't exposed to
I
sexuality.
was not
But there's
listening.
good sexuality,
Radical moderate
right?
is right. He
There's
is
good ways to
admonishing
have
me.
these kinds of conversations so that we are seeing our young folks, but we're also promoting their own education to learn about themselves, learn about their bodies, learn about who they are, right? Instead of shaming them for it. So it kind of softens the blow and culture shock of college, because we know once they get to college, the reinvention happens. And that's great. That is fine. It's part of my job. But I think if we can really tackle the K-12 system and really foster, that feeling of belonging and seeing and listening, by the time they get to me, it can be more of a more cohesive identity development rather than like, I have no idea who I am, help me figure it out. And which is fine. I will gladly do that. But I think sometimes for young folks, that can be a really hard and really large pill to swallow.
Thank you, Eric. I really think all of the points that all of you have made are very poignant. One of them that stuck out to me was focusing on how do we develop who the person is within K through 12 and letting them be able to embrace themselves fully. And I would like to circle back to the first question,
Circle
and I would
back.
like to pose it to Danielle, Eric,
I
and
always get skeptical
Jasmine.
when someone says
How do
circle
you
back.
see yourselves and your identities represented within the anti-racism movement or the different anti-racism movements throughout the years?
I see myself in many ways, right? I identify as Black, I identify as queer, right? I think personally I'm in that.
You guys
But
are right about
also I
lesbian.
feel that as an educator, I'm a 6 through 12 educator.
Well done.
How can we find ways to help teachers progress? Right. And so when I look at myself within this movement, I'm looking at it not solely, but I'm looking heavily through a school lens, right? How do we work with educators, work with families to say, this is work that we need to be doing? And so I really see myself as an advocate. Even though I have, identities that are within this, I really see myself right now as an advocate for this work, and across the board, right? For every type of family that's important for me too, not just to say it's this group that needs to be in the anti-racist movement working on this. So I would say, 19 years now in education, a advocate and being in a place where I can ask the hard questions, right? And I also see myself as a mentor, right? I am really big that on children are capable. Young adults are capable. So how do we empower them to lead and be leaders within this movement, no matter the age? And so I think right now I'm feeling like an advocate. I'm feeling like a mentor, it's exciting, right? I think it is. Every day I'm surprised. Every day I'm learning something new because children are like, Miss D, that was 2 weeks ago. So again, I think an advocate, a mentor, and an active learner, right? Because it's changing every day, and being surrounded by young people every day, they keep you on your toes. So I have to keep learning and have to keep growing within myself as well through this movement.
I think similar sentiments. I think I would see myself as a pillar, for the students. What led me to this field specifically is just trying to be what I didn't see when I was an undergrad. And I think that just having some consistency in, a young adult's life makes a difference, especially being in the field of higher ed, because for K-12, or however long you may be in middle school, elementary school, you've had your teachers, you have, your favorite teacher, whether it's your English teacher, history teacher, what have you. Then all of a sudden, post 12th grade, you don't have that anymore. And so when you are doing this identity development in higher ed, like I said, it can be a really hard and challenging pill to swallow. So I see myself as a pillar, but also I see a lot of myself in my students and the student that I wish I was. And I think
hang on. I already have this. It's unwokeart.com. There is a link in the description below. We're working on 3D printed stuff and plushies and stuff like that. I already have this set up, bro. I appreciate the suggestion, though.
That is just absolutely amazing with this generation of college students who are existing as who they are and asking difficult questions and coming to me saying, hey, Mr. Eric, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to see on campus, and working with them as best I can to make those things happen. And I think that really makes what I do worthwhile, because it makes me happy to know that even as I age and move forward, in my professional career, too are going to be moving and, leaving their mark on this movement, because we need them, right?
Yeah, echoing a lot of that, because I definitely see myself as like a member of the community now that I've started coming to school here and gotten involved with anti-racist action like on the ground. I definitely see myself as like um, an educator,
As a
as
future
like
member of
someone
Antifa. Oh
who
God, no,
I always
no.
wanted to see. So like freshman me wouldn't be so afraid. I'm a junior now. And I think that if I would have known someone like me in closer proximity, I would have been like less terrified when I first got here, because Chapel Hill is a very different place than rural South Carolina, where I'm from. So I think that that is like a big thing for me. And like, even I am a summer camp counselor. Even being a summer camp counselor, I try to be the camp counselor that like I didn't have when I was younger. So like the one that didn't yell, and the one that like was openly queer, because I live in a rural South Carolina during the summer. So I think that, and then like the constant evolution of that role as well, and how sometimes it comes with reframing what you think and what you believe. Um, I definitely feel like I'm represented in the movement in a lot of ways.
Thank you all so much. I really enjoy seeing how you all see yourself represented in the movement. I see we have one more question. What do you see or anticipate as the biggest challenge facing queer students of color? Because this could either be from personal experience or from observation as they work in the anti-racist movements.
Eric, you go ahead.
And this kind of bleeds into what I was going to talk about for my question, so I won't expound too much on it, but I think a lot of what queer students of color, Black students, queer students face is the classic twofold. I'm Black and I'm queer. So how do I function with those intersecting identities? Because it's not the most accepted in my community at home, and it's not.
I was born a certain way, and therefore I am automatically oppressed in every single thing that I do. The challenge is that I'm Black and queer. What does that mean? And I am not one to argue that there is still racism in the world. There are still people who look down on quote unquote queer people. That does exist. We need to acknowledge that. The world is not a perfect place. But what does it mean? Your challenge is not, I'm Black. That's my challenge. Your challenge is, how are you actually in real life, objectively experiencing hardship because of that identity? Give me a very specific example. Because I am Black, this happened to me. Because I am queer, this happened to me. A specific example, not I'm Black and Black people are oppressed in the world, and that's just the way it is, and I am oppressed because I'm Black. That is not a specific example. How are you oppressed? What policy is oppressing you? What happened to you as a direct result of your skin color and no other circumstance? Or your sexuality and gender identity and no other circumstance? Give me a really, just one. I have been watching these trainings for over 2 years now. I want just one concrete example of how you are oppressed because you are Black, that is based in objective effing reality.
Accepted, both identities are not accepted to the outside world. So I think we're continuing to have to navigate which one do I choose conversation, right? And both are not tangible, right? We carry all of who we are with us. And I think just from observation and both my own experience, navigating that intersection is very challenging, and is going to continue to be challenging until we can get to a point where we can comfortably have the conversations at home and then unpack those conversations and then do the work with, critical race theory and such. Because I think, unfortunately, we're always going to have to do double the work. That's just the way that the system works. It's the way the system has been created for us, right? And part of dismantling that is really unlearning the white supremacy that has been taught to us. It's unlearning the ideals of gender. It's unlearning the ideals of sexuality, right? And really breaking the mold at home.
It's liberating themselves from gender, from white supremacy, from sexuality. They are liberating themselves of all of these things. Yes, Akshay, I can get you a bingo card. Hang on one sec, please. One moment. Guys, so when do we most commonly hear the term liberation or abolition, as in to liberate yourself from gender, to abolish the gender binary? What trainings do we most often hear those words in? There's your bingo card. If you guessed socialist trainings, you'd be right. Come visit us for Socialism Saturday tomorrow at 6 p.m. You'll hear a lot of those same words.
And having difficult conversations with mom, dad, brother, uncle, sister, guardian, whomever, and then moving forward to using those tools to dismantle the system. I really believe it starts at home, because I have students in my office, unfortunately, who are themselves, from August to December, and then they
Of course, the Gnostic is a gospel of faith. It is a belief system. It is a religion. All religions are gospels of faith. Christianity is a gospel of faith. Judaism is a gospel of faith. Islam is a gospel of faith. Buddhism is a gospel of faith to a lesser extent, because it doesn't really have like a mythical being or anything. But like to a lesser extent, yeah, it's a gospel of faith. All religions, all spiritual belief systems are a gospel of faith. I happen to disagree that the woke ideology is directly related to Gnosticism in the way that James Lindsay argues that it's related to Gnosticism. I can disagree with him on this. I agree with James Lindsay on the vast majority of things. I think that James Lindsay is incredible. He's a genius. We are blessed to have him. He is a fucking hero. He is a role model. He has taught me and millions of other people so much. I just disagree with him on this one point, and I'm allowed to disagree with him. I'm sorry.
go home, and then they're just like, I have to be who I was before I came to campus. And that breaks my heart, because I'm just like, you've got a taste of freedom, right? You've been living as you've always been. And now for this month of winter break, or these 3 months of summer, you have to like live as someone that you're not. And I think that is a really challenging part. And then have to also be a student of color or a Black student and just have the world just naturally against you because of, systemic oppression and white supremacy. So then it's just like, well, how do I manage? But I think that really working that out and dismantling at home is part of the start.
Eric, I'm going to piggyback. That's exactly where I was going to go. And I was just going to call it stress, right? Stress, anxiety. I was speaking to a student a couple weeks ago who identifies as a student of color, queer, and neurodiverse, right? And it was the talk of those.
Oh, neurodiverse. I thought she said nerd averse, because look, it says in the closed captions, nerd diverse. I was like, she's adverse to nerds? Like, what the hell? No, neurodiverse, like autistic. And guys, by the way, there is more and more research coming out that that neurodivergent people, autistic people, are significantly more susceptible to gender ideology than non-autistic or neurodivergent people. Who would have thunk it?
And, what rooms do I go in? What rooms don't I go in? how do I navigate it? And what do I mean, that student said to me, like, what do I pick to fight? Right. And so to me right now, I'm really looking at the mental health. And of course, many challenges, but it's that stress and anxiety for me.
Yeah, definitely piggybacking off of that. I'm also neurodiverse. So
Oh, shocking.
sitting in like the
Oh God,
intersection
don't make
of
fun of the
all of
kids.
these
Oh, I follow
identities
my own rules.
does create a lot of stress for me, because it's like, where do you even start? Do I go against the racism, the homophobia, or the ableism? Like, there's not really a great place to kind of pick, because sometimes you have to choose your battles with the capacity that you have. And I find myself, especially at larger institutions like this one, picking the less of two evils. So I think that my biggest challenge personally is with interpersonal relationships that I've found that haven't started that work to decolonize their own mindsets, and that kind of those attitudes that I come up against.
I think a lot of my own, I guess, thoughts about this is similar to what has already been shared, but I think a major part of like anti-racism work and just being able to like be a queer, joyful Black person is like to be able to like really just exist fully as yourself in like whatever space that you're in. And I think it is difficult to do that while also grappling with the fact that like it is not the case that you can be fully yourself in every single space, and like
Why not?
not always be in a safe space, or you can.
These kids are being taught to put so many restrictions on themselves. Like, okay, so if you're coming in with the attitude, there are spaces that I can't, and I'm not making fun of the kids, I'm making fun of the ideology, to be quite clear. There are spaces in which I can't fully be myself because I'm Black, and in some spaces I can fully be myself, but there are so many spaces in which I can't fully be myself and be my authentic true self because I'm Black or because I'm queer or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you've already put like a boundary for yourself. Quite literally, no one created that boundary for you. No one said, what is her name? Mariah? No one said, Mariah, you can't be yourself in this space. You have to act a certain way in this space. That is the rules. You have to follow the rules if you're going to be in this space. Quite literally, no one said that. That is something that she made up for whatever reason she made it up, because some people like being oppressed. I don't know if you guys have known this or noticed this. Some people prefer to be in an environment where they are oppressed because it makes them feel more comfortable. Because guess what? Why might someone do that? Let's think about this for a second. Why might someone make the choice to show up in an environment where they are oppressed and they're saying everyone else around me is oppressing me in this environment and I just can't show up as my true self? She's saying that because it is a lot easier in the world to not show up as your true self than it is to show up as your true self, regardless of what anyone thinks about it. She doesn't know who she is. She's still young. She's still figuring it out. Probably she wouldn't even be able to show up as her true self if she tried. Because that would require knowing who her true self is, which she probably hasn't discovered yet because she's too young and the brain hasn't fully developed yet. But instead of saying, you know what? I'm in a certain place in my life. This is what I'm comfortable doing right now. I'm comfortable doing this. I'm not comfortable doing that. Instead of taking ownership over that and saying, these are my choices. I am choosing to show up in the world like this. I am choosing to show up in the world like that. Instead of saying, these are my choices, she needs to blame every other person around her for forcing her to show up like that when no one forced her to. No one created those rules. She put those rules on herself. And the reason I explained all of this is because normal people who are not woke do this all the time. They put boundaries and restrictions on themselves where those things don't exist, and then they blame everyone else for those boundaries and restrictions when they were the ones who did it to their damn self. If you feel like you can't show up in the world as your true authentic self, you have to realize that is a choice that you made. And you can very easily choose to make a different choice.
Do that. And I think it's difficult and very draining and tiring to be able to, or have to, I guess, manage and constantly be on edge as to like, where are you? Who is gonna make a side comment? Who continues to use only she pronouns for me? You know, that they is definitely first. You know, it's like, how do I, and then it's like, well, she's there.
Then don't give the she as an option. If you don't want people to use she pronouns for you, don't give people the she. Did you hear what she just said? She was like, she's basically trying to test people. She's like, I want to see how many people use she as the pronoun, even though I put the they first. You can see down in the corner here, she's got they, she. So what she really wants is for people to call her they, because it's a power play to see what people are going to do, but she put the she as an option to like test them. Like, are you really paying attention to what I want? Are you really seeing me? Yes, exactly. It's a passive aggressive power play. 100%. Where she's like, you can call me she, but don't call me she too much. And am I going to tell you how much you can call me she and how much you're supposed to call me they? No, because I want you to read my mind. And I want to be able to, exactly, Yasmin, I want to be able to cry victim when you call me she just one too many times, but I'm not going to tell you when that one too many times is, because it's a power play. That's all it is. A test to make sure everyone fails. So then she can be the victim, but she can also be the person that's calling them out at the same time. Why do you call me she all the time? Why don't you use they? She's both the victim and the oppressor at the same time, isn't she?
I think there's so much like thought, and I think it can be very overwhelming, very stressful, as Danielle said. And I think it's important that we have spaces, and that I think that Black queer students have spaces that they can, like, you don't have to worry, I can be who I am, I can be Black, but I can also be queer, I can be all of these things here in this space, because I think that's also important to ensure that you have the opportunity for self-growth and to have productive conversations that maybe you're seen, and understood. You don't have to maybe explain this thing, or how can you do this and then that, or there's always like already that understanding. So I think it's important that you're able to navigate that in a safe space.
Thank you, Mariah. And thank you, Brittany, for bringing up code switching. I definitely know that code switching is a constant. As a former UNC undergraduate student, I was in the place that you all are in, having to code switch. I also was dealing with physical disability at the time. So having to deal with that, being queer identified, being African American, and then also being fat, it was definitely a intersection of which one am I going to pick. So I really appreciate you all bringing up the intersectionality of it all. Our next question is, how might anti-racism organizations or organizations that want to be anti-racist, or the movement at large, how can we better serve queer students of color? And to add on to that, how can we create a sense of belonging within these movements for queer students of color?
I can start out with that one. And I think I also saw another question in the chat where Kennedy asked, do you feel you have support from your respective institutions? I'll answer that with a huge yes. But to me, it's intentionality. Thank you for the question. I think it's a great question. It's intentionality. And I can in no way take credit for what I'm about to talk about for my school because it was done before me. But even when we talk about affinity groups for students, you know, some, unfortunately, just because of probably time management and for us in our upper school, the schedule is so, the schedule allows you to have more than one identity, right? If you decide to go to affinity groups, they're not at all at the same time, they're in different days of the week, right? And that was intentional because again, we want young people to be seen, right? We want them to be able to go to the Christian affinity group and to the gender and sexuality affinity group or to the Black affinity group and the gender and sexuality affinity group. And so that intentionality is important. And again, I'll go back to, you know, what are we putting in front of young people? The books, it's the little things, right? The math problems. If you're putting up 8 posters in your classroom, did we look at those to see, were we intentional about those? And so, right, that's really in a 6 through 12 or K through 12, that's where my eye is. Where is that intentionality? And I think because we are dealing with young people, we're dealing with in any institution you're at, well, not any, but in many institutions, you're dealing with a diverse population. It's that intentionality, right? How can we make sure? And that is around ableism for me, that's around socioeconomic. How can we make sure that you, at some point in this 12-year stretch, right? Hopefully it's more than that, but that you are seen, or that, as Eric said, you feel heard, that you have a voice. So I think for educators that are in this group, it's the intentionality. I think everything needs to be intentional. I know that's hard. I know that's time consuming. I know at times that can be stressful. Fragility might say that's exhausting at times, but I think that we need to be intentional.
I think for me, it looks very similar to what Danielle is doing. However, in my role, I don't have to talk about race quite as much, considering that we are an HBCU. So it matters, it always matters, but the conversations look a little differently because now we can really hone in on the intersections, right? You're Black and is what I like to call. And so when we're talking about that and, what are we doing as far as programming? What are we doing as far as making sure that that and is, you know, lifted up? And also, if we're talking about my Department of Diversity and Inclusion, that includes multiracial folks, that includes international students, that includes low-income students, right? All of which who could also have queer identities, all of which who could not. And so when we're talking about your and identity, right, we want to make sure that we are being very intentional about the programming that we're offering so that when you are here, you can kind of like put one of those burdens to the side, like, okay, look, I'm Black every day, right? You can visibly see that. But what about the invisible identities? What about the invisible identities? Like, you can't physically see my queerness. You can't physically see my disability, right? You can't physically see that I might be multiracial, right? So how can we really lift that up? And so you have those invisible identities, you know, lifted up as well.
Can I add up one more thing? Is that okay? I think also is inviting people to the table, right? Especially in my work, I have to give a shout out. The leader of our PTAA diversity committee is in the room. So shout out to her because she is amazing and doing great work, but it's about getting many voices, for me and from the I perspective, about getting many voices at the table. Because I wish I was the smartest person in the world, but I'm not, even though I'm a graduate of North Carolina Central University. But to me, it's about the collective, right? Different experiences, people from different places. How can we sit around this table and work to move forward? So shout out to our president of our PTA Diversity Committee who's in the chat. But again, it's right, welcoming and opening the door and putting more chairs around the table. But again, that goes back to the intentionality of it all for me.
Thank you all. Thank you. I really appreciate the theme of intentionality and being intentional about what you are doing within the classroom. I also think that this even expands even more to economic development. Because when we have students in school, we want them to be successful.
They list fat as a disability, but then they also list fat as an identity. A lot of them will identify as fat as having like an immutable characteristic that like they can't get rid of if they want to eat differently and go to the gym and things like that. And you know, we haven't done a good fat studies presentation in a long time. Maybe I need to find us a really good fat studies presentation, because I've said this before. Fat, if you guys want to see some of the craziest content in the woke space, it's the fat studies stuff. It is the fat studies stuff, bar none. The fat studies people are crazy. And fun fact, and I've gone down this rabbit hole way too many times, and it is always a yes, you know what comes with fat studies? Amateur porn stars. All fat studies people are amateur porn stars. They all have a Pornhub. I swear to God, they all have an OnlyFans. Every single effing one of them. It is mind-boggling, some of the things these people do on video. I have seen things that can never be unseen. Don't go down the fat studies rabbit hole. Just go far enough, but stop as soon as you get to their link tree. Yup. Don't look at the link tree.
After they finish high school, after they
Yes,
finish college.
really, I'm serious.
So I
I'm
really
100%
think it's
serious.
important that we start in school and then even
Barb.
expanding out to businesses so that they can be more diverse and inclusive and creating a sense of belonging, because we want our queer students of color to make these 100K jobs where they are making a good
Curiosity
life for
did kill the
themselves.
cat. It's true.
So I really thank you all for each of your perspectives.
Reagan knows.
So we're gonna go to our next question.
Reagan's been on this adventure a
As
while now.
LGBTQ plus individuals of color, how does the intersection of anti-critical race theory and don't say gay laws affect your experience in school? And
It
how
doesn't at
can
all. You're in college.
cisgender heterosexual colleagues and fellow students support you? I'm going to point this question to Eric first.
I've thought so much about this question, and even now, so many thoughts are in my head. But I'll start by saying the intersection of those bans holistically take away it demonstrates a lack of accountability, which is what
it demonstrates a lack of accountability. But how much would you bet that this him has never actually read the bills that he's talking about? He's talking about like a lack of accountability. Has he actually read the bills that he's discussing? I would tend to doubt it.
Creators of white supremacy and the system want. They don't want to be held responsible for their contributions to the system and how the system continues to affect us and is continuing to affect our kids, right? And because of that, right, they don't want to have difficult conversations and be called racist and homophobic and transphobic, because that's the worst thing that these people can be called. And so in doing so, you're then taking away the representation that we need in our school systems, because we have always existed. Black folks, queer folks, Black queer folks have existed since forever. And we've been a part of every movement since the movements began, right? And so with Don't Say Gay and anti-critical race theory, what it's saying to me is, I mean, y'all were there, but not really. And we don't really want to talk about it. We don't really want to talk about your contributions. We want to continue to rewrite your history and teach you what we know, so that way we don't have to have these conversations. We don't have to face the way that police brutality, it's still affecting us. We don't have to face the way that racism is still affecting us. We don't have to face the way that HBCUs and minority serving institutions are still criminally underfunded. And then you want us to have these big, large programs for these students, but we don't have the means to do so, right? All of that is systemic.
Thank you, Kino.
We know that, they know that. And so for me, the intersections of these bands are just feeding into that. And I think what cishet individuals, instructors can do is be comfortable being uncomfortable, because we have to have these conversations, and nothing good has gotten done with complacency.
No, we will never do a late night fat stream bot.
Nothing.
That's
So
a horrible
for
idea.
us to begin
Don't put
dismantling
that
the
evil
system
on
and
me.
you to actually earn that title of ally, which they love to put on their bumper stickers, right? You got to show up and do something. It's an action word. You can't just say, I support you, and not actually show up for me. One thing that I talk about when I do my trainings at work is the idea of using your privilege and focusing on the exchange of privilege and power, right? I can enter spaces that, you know, a out trans individual cannot enter as a cis individual. I know that. So when I'm in that room, I have to advocate for that trans individual because they don't have access to the room the same way that I need, you know, a white individual to advocate for me in the room. And that's where it starts.
But why does
That's
the white
where understanding and asking questions and doing your
But why does the white individual have to advocate for you in the room? It makes no sense. Why can't you just go into the room and advocate for yourself? Is there some sort of policy keeping you out of the room? Is there a rope or something where they're like, black people cannot pass this? Like whites only? What, like, why do you need anyone else to advocate for you? You can advocate for yourself.
research and not putting the onus on the black person or the queer person or the black queer person to teach you, right, what it is.
Can you think of anything more disempowering in the world than truly believing that you need other people to advocate for you? Oh, I can't go into that room because I'm black and queer. I have to wait for a cis heterosexual white man to advocate for me. What are you talking about? No, you don't. Why are you oppressing yourself? Why are you requiring other people to stand up for you?
But to understand that it is what it is, acknowledging what it is, and saying, you know what, here's what I'm going to do as a privileged person so that we can have these conversations. And also not taking up space, right? So you want to be an ally, you want to have these important conversations, great, fantastic, do so. But look at the room, read the room. What are the students saying about their experience? What are they saying about their lives and their existence? That's where you need to start. It's not about you saying, all right, this is what I want to do for you, right? We don't want any white saviors. White saviors have been dead. We want action, but you got to take us with you.
Wait. So you don't want white saviors, but you do want white people to advocate for you. The white savior is dead, but you want action and you want the white people to take you with them. Bro, like, have you thought through your own position? Because everything you said just completely contradicts the other within the same breath. Do you want people to advocate for you or not? Do you want people to take you with them or not? Do you want white saviors or not? Wouldn't it all just be easier if you just showed up and advocated for yourself and didn't see it as anyone else's job to advocate for you? And it's like, I want people, and we're actually playing right there. Just like for some reason he's not moving. I actually want these people to be successful in advocating for themselves. I'm actually not trying to talk down and shit talk these people right now. But the fact of the matter is, they are the ones oppressing themselves. I want everyone, regardless of their race or their gender or their sexual orientation or their gender identity or whatever else or their fat status, I want everyone to have whatever they want in life. Because I want for other people what I want for myself. If I want things in life that I want to go after, I would hope other people would want me to have what I want too. So I want them to have whatever they want in life. I want him to be advocated for. I just think he's the best advocate for himself, not waiting for someone else to advocate for him. So I'm actually not shit talking these people as much as it may seem. I want this person to be successful in what he wants. The problem is he is the one that is holding himself back by expecting that other people are going to step up and do the work that he's damn well unwilling to do himself. I understand that it's uncomfortable to advocate for yourself. I really, really, really do. But that doesn't mean you sit back and you wait for someone else to do it. It doesn't mean it's anyone else's job to advocate for you. They could all profit from a disc profile. Absolutely, Barb. Everyone could profit from a disc profile if we're honest about it. It's the truth. Well, and actually Kurt is saying, and this is exactly the point, Kurt, he's been taught he's a victim. And this is why I think that critical race theory is actually most racist against young black men. I really do. Or young black women, I suppose, as well. Young black children. Because, people think that the enemy of critical race theory is white people. No, 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 no. Critical race theory teaches that white people are the most powerful people in the world. It also teaches that black people are the weakest people in the world, the most powerless people in the world. If you had to choose between being powerful and powerless, I'm going to guess you would choose being powerful. Critical race theory is most racist against black children because it teaches them that they are victims of the world and that they can only succeed in the world if white people allow them to. They're teaching them that they're a victim. They're teaching them to be passive. They're teaching them to not advocate for themselves. It's incredibly racist.
I mean, I was going to mute, but there's nothing left to say. So I'm just going to mute it back.
Exactly. Thank you, Eric. I posted in the chat that the right to comfort is one of the characteristics of white supremacist culture. So it's definitely, you really hit the needle on the head with that one. So I really want to thank you for your response. So if we all are ready, we can move on to the next question. What makes you, and by you, each of you, proud of your entire identity? And how do you nurture, or where do you find joy for yourselves?
I'll jump in. Share that my grandfather's 89th birthday is tomorrow. And I was raised in a household of Blackness. I remember at a young age that it was just joyful to be Black, right? I also come from a very diverse family in terms of LGBTQ. And so that's always just been in my family,
I like the
norm,
lavender
which
too,
I know is
Yasmin.
not the norm in many places. But
I'm actually very jealous of black women being able to pull off that color of lavender. Also, like those mustardy yellows. I just think it looks so good on black skin tone. I really do. I can't pull off those colors.
but I come
I
from
am
ancestors
oppressed
who
with
loved who they were and
pastels
who
and light
really
colors.
poured that into my soul, into my bones. And I'll be honest, I feel it, right? I feel the joy of who I am. I feel the excitement of who I am. I feel the confidence. And then I made the decision, and I know I brought it up a lot. I made the decision to go to North Carolina Central University and to be in a place where the majority of people look like me for, in my opinion, my most formative years. I left that institution with a level of confidence that I don't I'm like, we're doing it. This is who we are. This is right. And so I do feel, and I'm also, you all can't tell with me sitting down, but I'm 6 feet 2 inches, right? So I know that my parents did a lot for me in terms of put your shoulders back, keep your head high, don't hunch over, don't not wear high heels, right? They really poured into me. And so I have to say, my uncles, all of my mom's brothers are within the LGBTQ community. And so they also showed me, right, that we are who we are, and we walk in the room and we don't take anything from anybody.
That seems
And so
statistically
I also have to
impossible, but
acknowledge that I
okay,
was
fine,
blessed
whatever.
to be able to
Whatever you
have
like.
that,
Who cares?
right, in my family, and have that growing up and be able to sit with those people. But for me, it's my ancestors. It's my grandfather who turns 89 tomorrow. It's the grace of my grandmother, right? If you all saw her last Easter, she had on a full pink Easter suit, right? And so I take, right, and I come from a strong mother. And so I carry them with me. And I carry it in my soul. I carry it in my bones. I can feel them. And that for me, doing equity work every day is hard. It's taxing. And sometimes you have to compartmentalize your identities, right? When you're trying to work with people to progress them. And so for me to have that foundation and to have that in my soul and in my bones, I'm grateful that I was able to be born into the family that I was born into, because they really have poured into me and they continue to pour into me. And I'll give a shout out because some of my friends are in here too. So they pour into me as well.
I think I feel very similarly to Danielle in that I think a lot about my ancestors in a way that I think for me was not necessarily having people in my family to turn to say, oh, you're queer, you're part of this community, even though I know they were there. But I think for me, it's been thinking a lot about
I'm getting that maze
reflecting
one.
a lot about matrilineality within like Black communities and Black families and how amazing that is, and how I navigate that as a queer person, but still being able to like
Maze, juice maze.
claim my ties to that wonderful like history. I think has brought me a lot of joy recently. I recently was able to talk to an elder in one of my courses, Connie Studman, who she was sharing with us a bit about rapping and how her mother taught her how to rap.
I haven't even started yet,
I think,
Kurt.
like,
I don't want to think about
in
it.
her mid-late 60s, but she's talking about how her mother taught her.
This is the first time I'm ever talking about this publicly. I just got bent over and fucked by the IRS through an audit, which was, they assured me it was purely coincidental and totally random and didn't have anything to do with me being a January 6th at all. Even though they audited the entire year leading up to January 6th and the entire year following January 6th, the IRS assures me that it was totally, 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 totally random. I'm sure it was completely coincidental that they audited every single trip I did with Walkaway, and I had to go back and find quite literally 800 pages worth of receipts and credit card statements and bank statements for 2 full years. I have a lot of feelings about this. I have never felt like the government is stealing my money so much in my life. But they tried to get me on stuff and they fucking failed. They really thought they were going to catch me on the travel stuff and they failed because I sent them 800 pages worth of paperwork. The IRS can go fuck itself. And now I have to do my taxes for this year. Fun times. Fun times were had by all. Guys, please mount that like button for me if you are at all sympathetic for the fact that I got through an audit in the past month.
Her to rap and how it was this wonderful, like, beautifully Black feminine thing, in a way that I think queers ways that when we've been thinking about rap or understand rap to be, in a way that I think is very powerful, in terms of being in terms of ancestry, I also think about the fact that like I'm gonna be an ancestor at some point, and how I think again it's important that like my, I don't know, descendants, that's weird, but they can like, I guess, look to me and say, wow, like that's amazing. That's a person that I can maybe aspire to, or see this is how that they were able to live their life so amazingly and so wonderfully and joyfully. And like I could maybe do that too, and like
That beer
exceedingly
is not as good as
and
the other
abundantly
one.
so. I think is really encouraging and brings me a lot of joy to think about. Um, and I think I was also able to recently reflect a little bit about what um, that kind of my, I guess, ancestral identity means just broadly. And I think a lot of it is my friends who I'm able to share community with, that chosen family. I have one friend, Steph, who's in the chat, and we, after gospel choir practice, we have our little chat sessions. And you know, they're also wonderful and Black and queer, and we're able to kind of engage with one another in ways that are beautiful and affirming of each of our own life experiences. And I like, we each mutually greatly appreciate, you know, those times to be able to share space with one another. And yes, I think that was all. So yes, shout out Steph.
Yeah, echoing Mariah's point about chosen family, I feel like for me, I find a lot of joy and a lot of like nurturing and like wrapping myself in like Black queer love like radically. So
What?
not only to the extent that like I'm around Black queer people, but like I am very intentional about filling my spaces with Black queer people and people who are going to affirm those things about me. And
So Yasmin, they, them is creating an echo chamber where she will never be questioned about her identity or any of these things. She's only going to have people saying nice things about her at all times around her. And listen, you know, I can understand that. I can understand why you don't want haters in your life. I can understand why you don't read the comments. You don't read negative stuff about yourself. It's just the way it goes. But I do think that when you're younger and you're creating your worldview, having a diverse set of viewpoints around you so that you can try different things out is, generally speaking, a positive idea. Like, I'm old. I have lived life. I have tried on many different perspectives. We do this once a week. Well, twice a week if you count Socialism Saturday. We listen to people we disagree with all the time. We aren't creating an echo chamber here. Yes, there will be some sort of stream next Thursday, but it will be probably a little bit earlier because next Thursday is actually movie night. So, um, we'll see. But like, you know, it's okay to listen to people who you disagree with and consider their perspective is all I'm saying.
making sure that even if I'm not represented visually, I am represented like in support and in love and making those spaces. And I think that college is so much about finding those spaces and learning how to carve them out for yourself, because especially going to a PWI where you get a lot of performative support but not a lot of actual support, you have to be very, very, very intentional and very like clear about making spaces safe for yourself and for people like you that will come and have already passed through. So I think that for me, wrapping myself in community has been really, really important.
I think to Adrian's point in the chat about being excited that, you know, we're all excited about being elders, right? I giggled to myself because I always joke that I can't wait to be a grandpa. Like I'm excited to have kids in the future too, but I really want to be a grandpa. But, you know, there are reasons for that because I just want to get to the elder status, right? And just the idea of like being a queer parent and a queer grandparent, it's just like, well, okay, we made it. All right. But also being satisfied with the fact that you've made it and you've laid a foundation for your lineage, right? And by lineage, I mean my blood or anybody who is in my chosen family, right? Because we've talked a lot about chosen family tonight. And as queer folks, we need chosen family, right? We cannot make it through without our chosen family, especially if, you know, our birth families aren't the most supportive, right? But with that, for me, it's just I made it through. Here's what I know. I did this, and this. This worked for me. You know, take it or leave it, right? I don't want to gatekeep any information. You know, even now working with my students, and they're just like, "Oh, Miss Eric, what should I do?" I'm just like, "Okay, this works for me. Try this, try that. If that doesn't work, we can go back to square one," right? There's no need for me to gatekeep information because I want to be able to set my young folks up for success, right? And I think that that's what better way to do that than just, you know, being in your lived experience, right? Because they're looking at you just like, well, you did this before I did, so help your man's out. And I'm just like, all right, we'll work through it. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, y'all have just brought me joy listening to how you all find joy within yourself. I have personally thought about what is my life going to be like when I do have kids. So, and what type of grandmother will I be? Am I going to be like a cool grandma? You know, seeing myself as an ancestor and being able to lead any children or little cousins, little nieces and nephews that I have is very important for me. And being able to set up their future through the work that I'm doing is super important to me as well. So one of our final questions before we go to our question and answer
Q&A is
is
always
for
the
each of
best.
you. If you could
I'm so
go
excited they're
back and
having
give
one.
one piece of advice or feedback to a former teacher, what would it be?
Hang on. Boom, I disagree with this. Sorry, but if you can't get along with family, you're not going to have a relationship long enough to make kids. I don't have a great relationship with my family, Boom. I've been married to my husband for over 11 years. It'll be coming up, it'll be 12 years in November. More than enough time to make kids if we wanted kids, but we don't because we like our money and we like our freedom. I'm just saying there are a lot of different family dynamics out there in the world, and I understand why people talk about the family of choice. I actually think the family of choice is important for like a lot of people. You can have your real biological family, and you can also have a family of choice that are people that you choose to be close to, right? Or you can not have a great relationship with your biological family and still have your family of choice. Or I guess you could have just your biological family and not have a family of choice as well. But like, you're going to meet people in the world that are going to have a profound impact on you that you really just click with, that you get along with, you have the same things and all that. So I don't think that your family relationships dictate your future relationships, although there is something to be said for the fact that your family does teach you how to have functional relationships. So it might be a little bit tougher, but I'm an example of someone who doesn't have a great relationship with their family, but I have a really good marriage. Bot says Carlin's community is my cult of choice. Thank you, Bot. I appreciate that. It really is a very pretty color on her, if we're honest about it.
All right, and we're gonna do Jasmine first.
She's like, I'm just gonna call on you. I
I
aren't saying
found
anything.
this question hard to answer because I want to be an educator and I want to be supportive. I just didn't have the most supportive educators in my life. So I kind of want to be the teacher that I never had. Um, so if I could go back in time, I have some very strong words for a few of them, knowing what I know now. But but I would say probably, haha, I win, you lose, because I won. I believed in myself. I got it. Like, I found my strength. I found my courage. I am openly queer and Black and excited to be both of those things. And they didn't kill my spirit. They tried, but they didn't win. So if anything, it would be nana nana boo boo.
I'll jump in really quickly. I had to ask that clarifying question. I was like, is it my teacher or a teacher? But if it's just a teacher in general, then I would tell a teacher that I worked with when I wanted to be a public school teacher that you just have to pay more attention to your social cues, to the cultural difference, right? This individual, I was in a 7th grade classroom, I will never forget it. And I was in the inner city of my home state, and I was the student teacher working with my peer teacher, and she was this 5'1" white lady, and I am this 6'1" Black man. And all of our kids are Black or brown or Latinx. And there was this one child in particular, young person, who gave her a hard time. I loved him, but gave her a hard time. And she kicked him out of class, and I went in the hallway and I said, "What's up?" And his words were, "She doesn't understand me." And I said, "What's going on?" He told me a little bit about what was going on at home. I said, "All right, look, go back in the classroom. Can you get through the rest of the period for me?" He said, "All right, I got you." Didn't hear a peep. But what I realized now, even as an adult, he just needed to be heard and seen in that moment. And he was fine. The next day or the next time I had class, he was fine. And so for me, it's just you gotta understand that this is a cultural difference. They don't see the world the same way that you do. And that is okay, but you have to be mindful of that fact that they don't see the world, and be mindful of your privilege. So when you're kicking the student out of class, right, it's not just because you're disciplining them. They're seeing this white lady use her privilege to kick them out of class and to ostracize them. You gotta think twice about that, come down to their level and really have a conversation. And again, like I said earlier, be comfortable being uncomfortable. So that's what I would say to her.
I think for me, looking back, and I think I actually talked about this in Dr. Eddie Moore Jr.'s book, I really wish teachers would have stood up, right? I feel like my parents always had to show up to stand up, and I had parents that could do that, right? And so for me, it's about teachers standing up. I remember an incident younger, and I feel like everybody in the class heard the incident happen, and the teacher was like, "I didn't hear it." I'm like, "How did everybody else hear it?" And so for me, it's, I needed someone to stand for me, right? And my parents did it, but I had to get home 3:30. My mom was working. By the time I thawed out the meat for her to, get the meat ready, then we talked about it. But in the moment, I wish I would have had more educators that would have stood up for me. And so for me, thinking back, I think about that. And I think now, after having this many years in education, I think the standing up is still big, but I also think, as educators, we have to go the extra mile, right? As an educator, I don't know everything about everyone's culture or their religion. I got to pick up a book, got to read an article, right? As a director of equity, I can't be an expert on everything, right? But I need to show up in the spaces that I don't normally show up in. And for me, I hope that my hope is for educators moving forward, that I know teaching is one of the hardest jobs out there. But we signed up for it. And so, what is that extra mile that we have to go?
I think in terms of especially going the extra mile, I think I would talk to a couple of white teachers that I've had. I think would definitely, call themselves allies. They have that bumper sticker. But like, I think often, and it was interesting because these are, white teachers who taught at my high school, Hillside High School, who I think would say that they're doing amazing, like they're doing all of the work that needs to be done. And I think like maybe that there's like no improvement that they can do in the work that they do or in the lessons that they teach. But I think that often results in like doing things that are not as intentional as they may think they are, especially as white people. No, yeah, especially as white people, I think it's important that they're, especially at a historically Black, majority Black high school, that you're speaking and hearing what your students are feeling about the things you're saying, about the way that you're interacting with your class, about the histories that you're teaching in your class, about the way that you are making space for queer students in your courses. I think it's important that you're always like wanting to make sure that you're supporting these queer students, these queer Black students in the ways that they need to be supported, even if that doesn't always align with how you may have experienced things or how you may have previously been perceived your work to be doing. So I think always making sure that you're not doing this so that you can be called an ally or that you can receive an award or whatever the case, but that you're doing this because you want these Black students to, or queer students broadly, to just live wonderful lives and be seen, and have a wonderful education that they can like recall positively.
Thank you. You all made such amazing points. I think it's super important for individuals, especially within the education atmosphere, to understand that it's okay to not be 100% an expert all the time. We are all in this journey together, and it takes learning,
Have a good one,
constantly
Sam.
learning, reading, to be able to bring your best self to the work. And I think sometimes, like you all said, while doing the work, some people are like, oh, well, I have this, the pride flag in my classroom. I am very inclusive. Um, I think the best way to do it is to speak with our students, understand what makes them feel like they belong, what gives them, that feeling like, oh, I see that you see me and I see that you understand me. So I like to move on to our audience questions. So for our first question, I'm not sure who it came from, but I'm just going to read out the question to you all. As a parent advocate within the anti-racism movement, how can
Hang on. So you may have been blocked then. I don't know why that was. But as long as you're following the chat rules, if you follow the chat rules, your chances of being blocked are going to go down like a significant degree. So you're here now. I'm going to be honest. People don't normally get blocked if they're following my chat rules. So you may not have felt like you were breaking the rules, but someone may have felt like you were breaking the rules. So one of my chat rules is that there is no whining. Okay? There is no insulting me, there's no insulting other people in the chat, and there's no whining. And it's real simple. That's really all the chat rules that there are. So you're here now. If you want to participate and making sure you're following the rules, you're more than welcome to, but I don't want to hear any more complaining, all right? I wish I could see it right now. I can't. I'm just saying, you're here now. We're happy that you're here now. We would like you to have you participate, but just like relax, all right? And if it was an accident, then I apologize for that. I can't fix it right now though. So, you know, sometimes accidents happen. I will acknowledge that sometimes accidents happen, but just like chill, man. Relax.
I help to start the conversation of supporting queer students of color, either for our own kids or for our kids' classmates?
I would say, oh, Mariah, did you want to go? Oh. I would say just start and normalizing the conversation. I think while I'm not a parent yet, the youth that I've worked with and that I'm closely related to know a lot more than you think. I think a lot of times we, in our adult brains, we try to filter what we're saying to children. And yeah, you want to make it, so they can understand it. But sometimes I've been surprised by my own brother who's throw words at me and I'm like, oh, okay. You know what being bisexual means. That's cool. Right. And so you just have to kind of trust that they trust you and just have the conversation. And if they ask a question, you answer the question and then you move on from it. Because what we don't want is to have our kids run up against somebody who is anti, and then they, get to them first, and then they come questions, and then we have to quickly undo what they just heard, rather than getting it from somebody they trust, and then they do the work to be like, well, that's not what mom, dad, or my teacher said, so I don't really know if that's true, right? Like, trust that they trust you.
Does this fall under SEL? I mean, it could. SEL means so many different things to so many different school districts. Generally, the thing that you need to be most concerned about with SEL is when they're surveying your kids. But anything revolving around emotions, really generally, is going to fall under that.
Mariah, were you going to jump in? I don't want to step in. I have a dog barking in the background because I'm a dog mom to two barking dogs. I think it's
Yappy dog.
I echo everything Eric said, and I also think, for families that are in the K through 12, right, it's very different than college, right? Because there's parents who are in charge.
She's got
and
a
so I really think it's about the
I can tell.
education.
I know the
parents,
Chihuahua bark.
right? And what kind of events can we put in front of parents? What experts can come in to talk to parents, and really allowing those parents in time to opt into those conversations, because I think it's a lot of that is about education.
I think that it's important that I think you're always, especially like in the household, just like embodying love in every single interaction that you have. And I think like if you do that, then everything else will kind of come into place, because it's like, if you love me, then why is this maybe vocalized, or why is this perspective said in ways that aren't consistent with what love is and what
I'll look
love looks
into it
like.
ultra
And so I
mega
think that if
salty.
that's central to what you believe that is true, then it'll be natural and it'll come into place, without maybe needing to explain your actions or explain, oh, I actually really mean this, or etc. It'll just be the truth of things, I guess.
These awkward pauses are killing me.
Thank you all. I really love your comment on embodying love. I feel like love is just so
We still have half
important
an hour of
for
this.
our
Oh my
youth, and
gosh.
especially our queer youth of color. Just making sure that they feel loved and that they see the love, and they don't feel that your love is conditional upon your ideal of what you think they should be. So I think that's super important. So for our next question, what affirmations and changes allowed you to blossom as a queer person of color? And what do you have to say to POC that are struggling to be proud of their queerness?
Just be proud of their queerness. Just be proud. Just do it. Don't say you're oppressed.
I think for me, affirmations and changes that really helped me blossom were realizing that white supremacy, racism, homophobia, those aren't things that I have to carry within me. The systems are doing that work. I don't have to do that work. I am not a reflection of the system. I don't have to be what they think I am. I have to define myself.
You know what?
And
This is actually shockingly good advice. Okay, it's given in a misguided context. I'm not going to say you should only look to your own self-empowerment when like you're dealing with systems of white supremacy. Okay, that's not something that would come out of my mouth, but this is actually really good advice. You don't have to adhere to any system. The only one that can force you to adhere to a certain system is you. You making that choice to adhere to a certain system. If you don't like the system, don't adhere to it. Now, that's not always the easiest thing in the world because sometimes you have to speak up and go directly in opposition to the system. But it is a choice. And if you don't acknowledge that it's a choice, then you will never be able to escape it.
I think that once I realized that I don't have to be who my mom wants me to be, or who my grandma wants me to be, or who the white supremacists want me to be, or who the government wants me to be, and I realized
Who
I
do the
just
white
have to be
supremacists
someone
want
that
you to
makes
be?
me happy, and that will reflect in everything that I do. I think that really helped me realize that like being queer, being Black, sitting at the intersection of these identities, and there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, it is something I find joy in. And I not only find joy in them, but I like radically find joy in them. I don't let those things come for me. I don't let them impact me. And I know it's easier said than done. Once you realize that it truly is systemic, it truly is a system that is set up to make me fail and make me less proud of myself. Once you realize that it has nothing to do with you, it is a them problem and not a you problem, it makes it so much easier to find joy in who you are. And it just like comes through. Um, so I think that for me, if anything, just realizing that they want me to hate me, so I'm not going to.
And if I can really quickly just take all of those points, Jasmine, and apply it to the identity of being a cis man, a cis Black man, right? That in itself has freed me from so much. Because in the world that we live in as a Black queer man, I could go on, but I'll make it short by saying I was born with expectations, societal expectations of what it is to be me and how I interact with this world. And once I discovered that none of that stuff matters and that I could really do what I wanted and be who I am, it put a lot of things into perspective for me and really opened up the doors to really just embracing myself and doing what the hell I wanted to do. Because who's gonna check me?
I think, oh, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think for me, again, I'll say, it's hard for me to answer that question because I'm not the norm in terms of the family I probably came from and the acceptance. But when I see the young people that I'm seeing today that are not getting that support at home, I think, Mariah and Jasmine said it's the chosen family. And I really, really see, and I have friends actually that I've grown up with, right, that I know I'm part of their chosen family just because of the dynamics of their home, and being able to fill that bucket, right? It's like that friends having them over for the holidays and all of that. We can fill them. And so, again, fortunate enough that like everybody's bringing their husband to Thanksgiving dinner at my house or, holiday dinner at my house. But those friends, right? And just for me, embracing them and lifting them up and holding them and having them with my family for a holiday or having them with my family. And so I do think that chosen family has really, really helped people that I know rise up and be able to enter spaces that they never thought with support, with people behind them, with people rooting for them.
I think for me, something that's been providing me a lot of comfort is just reminding myself that I have always been the like amazing Black queer person that I am, even when I didn't know that I was. I think a lot about when I first read Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. And I read that when I was maybe in like either late elementary school or early middle school. And I really loved that book. And I was very much not aware, or I guess allowing myself to be aware of my queerness fully, or, you know, provided the ability to like be aware of my queerness fully at that time. But I really love that book. Like I was just like, Miss Woodson is really speaking to me right now. And it's like there's a couple reasons for that. You know, maybe you're not ready to, you know, really come to terms with the fullness of that. But it's like I was always the amazing queer person that I am. And I think that's always encouraging to think about in terms of now that I am aware, you know, how much further can I go in terms of being my full self, and even just further reflections on who I am as a person, that's also something that I definitely at my mere 21 years of age do not like fully know. And I like it's very exciting to think about like who else am I that I haven't quite gotten to yet.
Imagine if at 21 years old, she actually had a real mentor. Not a mentor that's like, girl, you tell me where you want to go. You lead the discussion. You tell me everything in the world and I will follow what you tell me to do. Imagine if this young lady or young they, however she wants to be referred to or however they want to be referred to, I guess, actually had a mentor that said, "Here is what you need to know about life in order to get to where you want to go. Here is what you need to do." And every time she said, "But people aren't calling me they enough," you say, "You then don't fucking give them the option to call you they. Then don't give them the option to call you she. If you want them to call you they, you need to ask for that. If you want more money at the job than they offered you, then you need to negotiate. If you want something, you need to assert yourself. If you want people to see you as a powerful they, then you need to show up and use your voice." Like, what if this person actually had a mentor that could guide them and teach them what real empowerment looks like? Because I don't think this person is a bad person. They're misguided because the adults in their life have lied to them. Yeah, this is what Jordan Peterson does, and people hate him for it. Exactly. Exactly. I now am starting to understand this, Kurt, because apparently I have been excommunicated from the Mises Caucus for believing in cognitive behavioral therapy. So now I'm starting to understand Jordan Peterson's pain on some level.
Wow. That, y'all gave me chills. Um, whew, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I'm trying to figure out a way to transition because that was so good. Um, I would, I guess I can share something that has allowed me to blossom as a queer person of color. The number one thing that allowed me to blossom was actually coming to North Carolina Central University, going to the LGBTA resource center and being with people who are like me. I honestly felt so accepted. I felt joy to be with people who I knew accepted me just for who I was. They didn't have any expectations on what I should be, who I should be, what I should want to do. They accepted me for who I was. And I feel like that's the most important thing for our youth and our queer students of color to feel. So I just really wanted to get that out. Thank you all for allowing me to, step in and say that. Um, if you could give your younger self advice or encouragement, what would you say? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Jasmine.
The question was if I could give any advice to my former self. Okay, yes. So I think if I could give myself any advice, it's to seek out community often and as much as I could. Because I think I didn't value community as much when I was younger, but now I've realized how important it is.
It is a group therapy session. Absolutely. On the internet, live.
I think I definitely echo Jasmine in like encouraging myself to seek community. I think growing up, I was often told that like, you don't need all those, you don't need all these friends, and like, you maybe need one or two. It's okay. But it's like, no, it's nice to have people around you that like love you amazingly for who I am. And like, and I also love them because they're also amazing people. Not just people who like, oh, I guess you're here, I guess, I don't know. But like to really like allow yourself to be vulnerable and like happily be joyful with other people, I think is something that I wish that I did more. And I think would have let me I think also understand myself a bit more as well in that same way. So I think definitely encouraging myself to share community with others. Yeah.
I think for me, and I don't want this to come off mean in any way, but I do identify as an empath. And
I identify as an empath as well.
I even as I'm thinking about what I've said, right, and my ancestors and how they filled my cup and all of that, there still was a portion of a imposter syndrome or of a, that I just wish I would have cared less. So I look at these young people on the screen right now and I just want to be like, there's part of me that I look back on some situations and I wish I could have just,
you know what?
Cared a little less.
That's really good advice, actually. That's really good advice. I actually believe she's an empath by that advice. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But so being an empath, you can basically pick up on the emotional undercurrents of the situation a lot easier than normal people. And I always thought that like everyone experienced that, but no, most people don't experience that. And so I actually like this advice because when you can easily pick up on the emotional undercurrents of the situation, you tend to care a lot more because, you understand how people feel and why they feel what they feel. And so it makes it a lot harder to detach. But that detachment is actually pretty critical. So this is a really good life lesson. Care less about what other people think about what you're doing. And there will always be people who will try to convince you that you should care more than you do, but you are under no obligation to care just because someone else wants you to.
In terms of that progression and how people may have been viewing me when I walked into a space.
Same. Same. I think I would tell my younger self, hey, it's cool. You don't have to, you just don't have to. You just do not have to. I spent a lot of time conforming and trying to shake off that quote fingers demon for a long time in my life. And when I finally got to the point where I was like, I don't give a damn. I was free. And I was like, great. But I would really just tell my younger self, hey, friend, it is okay. It is so okay. I think that would have made a difference.
And Eric, I think to piggyback off on that, I can say it to my young self, and sometimes I need to say it weekly now, right? So I don't want to, turning 40 hasn't ended the caring, but it's just more conscious in my mind to be like, I think I can move past that.
I have to remind myself constantly that it's not that deep. Especially like that imposter syndrome thing when like you are in a place where like you do a lot for a lot of people and you want to show up for these people. Like it's not that deep. It's going to be like, it's the people in my life have to ground me constantly, right? Because I'm just like, what I'm going to do. And it's just like nothing. There's nothing you can do. And that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. I definitely want to echo Eric and Danielle in saying that I really need to care less sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I care so much, I give myself anxiety. So learning to not care earlier would have definitely been beneficial. So I do want to move on to our next question. So if we want to dismantle the current system, what kind of educational system do we want to create? Or what would a liberated school system look like, and how can teachers help create it?
Oh God, liberated equals socialism. Remember. Waiting patiently.
I think I'm pausing, right? Because that's hope, right? It's hopeful that we get there. And I don't know. Yeah, to me, it's there's so many things, right, that I could say that we could go in and different beliefs people have on schooling. But for me, it's like the hard conversations. How can faculty and teachers and administrators sit in spaces and have honest conversations, right? And I often say, right, we might not be able to fix everything, but how can we acknowledge what the truth is, right? So we can build some sort of plan. So I hate that I'm not pushing hard on the question that you just asked, but I feel my hope is that we get there. I don't know. But for me, in the meantime, it's about creating an environment where adults and where students can ask the hard questions and have the hard conversations. And that's around anything. And I think through those conversations, right, comes growth and comes something different. So I'm hopeful. I wish I could tell you what that would look like or when it would happen. But for me right now, it's really focusing on having the hard conversations.
I think that's a big question. I think a liberated education system just calls for the big conversations that are happening outside of the classroom and, with the administrators and the instructors, but also is calling for just a change in curriculum, a reformation in curriculum, representation in curriculum, but then also just a place where students can exist unapologetically as themselves. I think a lot of times, while so much has changed since I was a kid and since I was in college, there's so much more room for us to make room for, diverse students, including the invisible identities as well. But I think it just has to come with the acknowledgement that not all of my students are going to, be cisgender. Not all of my students are going to be heterosexual. Not all of my students are, going to be neurotypical, right? Expecting the unexpected so that when you get it, you're just like, all right, I was prepared for this. And even when you get something that you haven't prepared for, it's just like, all right, how do we adapt? Let's go look at the IEPs. Let's go look at the parental documents. Let's involve the parents, right? If the parents aren't available or don't want to be involved, let's find some other resources to help this kid, right? So there are many ways that liberation can happen. I just think we have to be committed to it. And being committed to it means that
Liberated.
we're putting people who are committed in, the board of ed, and because it all starts with senior leadership. I cannot do anything if I don't have senior leadership.
To liberate ourselves in education, we have to have strong leaders that believe in compelling children to adhere to public schooling. And that will liberate us. To lock us into public schooling will be to liberate us from education. Sure. Okay. Makes total sense.
Behind me. And so once we get that together, I don't know when that will be, hopefully it's soon, but once we get that together, then we can really start the trickle down effect.
Yeah, I just think a lot of like K through 12 especially has to be decolonized. The way that we look at education, the way that we act in educational settings, a lot of it is to feed white supremacy, feed the machine, feed the agenda, you know, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but like a lot of it is primed for just that. It's the reason why schools aren't really big community places. You can find like little groups a lot of the time, but like the support from admin a lot of the time is lacking, at least like in public schools when they don't want to support said affinity groups. You can't really find them. So I think that a lot of what we do in schools is very much a product of Western education models. And once we realize that those don't work and those don't serve every single student, and like Eric said, expecting the unexpected and realizing that the typical is not typical anymore. What you think is going to work probably won't. And being okay with that and being okay with that discomfort and allowing those students to still flourish under your tutelage, I guess.
I think part of what I see is that the teachers, parents, all the people who are I guess involved in like education in school actively see that their children are full people who like exist fully in all the ways that people do. And I think that allows for like them to actually really be listened to be centered in their own education in a way that I think is very necessary, but I don't think often very present. So I think that's what is most important or standing out for me.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I do have one final question. How do you all have any final thoughts or notes that you would like to leave us with before we close out for today?
I think for me, for the educators that are in the room, I think I just love to reiterate, stand up. And, you know, again, I acknowledge that being a teacher, I think parenting, I mean, that's like it's the hardest of the hard. But you still gotta push. And I know many days it's difficult because you're just trying to get all the grades in the grade book and the comments and whose assignments missing, and you have lunch duty and all of this, but you're with these young people. And as I hear these two young people on this panel with me,
And they're
I'm trying to
stunning
get
and
up there,
they're
right?
brave.
Because I hear Eric on the being a grandpa thing. They need us and they are looking to us and they need us to stand up. And so I push educators in this space, right? If you don't leave with anything else that I said, stand up. And if you need help with that, reach out to someone. If you need PD and you don't think you can afford it, call someone, right? There's a
Professional
network of
development.
people, and there's a network of free things, right, that you can opt into, but stand up, right? And for me, it's going that extra
Again,
mile.
this is really good advice. This person is giving really good advice. I mean, she's been like, advocate for yourself. Like, yes, that's actually what people need to hear. I'm like totally like on this person's team right now, to be honest with you. I know that she's a woke leftist and probably a socialist, and so that's not good. But this is why they're winning. I cannot emphasize this enough. On the right, when people stand up and use their voice, do you know what happens? People are like, "You're a grifter. You just want attention. Sit down." And they give a list of reasons why you shouldn't be expressing your opinion or your ideas or anything else. If you God forbid come up with a really good idea, they're like, "You just want attention. You're a narcissist, grifter." But on the left, they're like, stand up, use your voice. Like, this is really good advice, and the right should listen to this advice because it's really effing on point. The most powerful people in any room are the people who are expressive. They're the people who are using their voice. If you are not using your voice, then you have no power. And if you allow people to silence you, you are allowing them to take your power away. No, she's a she her. We can see her pronouns in the corner. She's a she her. I didn't mean to click on Barb's thing. Well, I was purged out of the Mises Caucus with every other person in the state of New Hampshire. So this was not my choice. I was trying to help them. And then I was purged out of the Mises Caucus with every other person in New Hampshire. So it is what it is, I suppose. We're going to do a whole separate stream on that. Don't worry about it. I have not left the Libertarian Party. I will not leave the Libertarian Party. Because it is still where my ideals are. But yeah, every single person in New Hampshire got kicked out of the Mises Caucus the other day. It was great. Absolutely, absolutely functional fucking organizing.
I think one thing that I forgot to mention, I don't remember which question it was. I think about like being proud of my identity and ways I've done that. And I think another thing that also relates to like that Black femme wonderfulness is also like wonderful Black Southernness. And I think that's also very central to my identity, very central to my queerness as well. In that also queerness has always been something that has been present in the South, of course, and wonderful and thriving. And so I think that's also been something that's been providing me a lot of joy in seeing how all those identities kind of come together into the person that is me.
I think my ending note is to intentionally like hold joy, hold space, and hold love for queer students of color. I think safe spaces are super duper important, and not only performative safe spaces, but actual safe spaces where we can have tough conversations or just feel comfortable to be ourselves. I think it's so important. That's what's made the best educators that I've ever had, just made me feel comfortable, put material in front of me that made me feel represented, made me feel like I could do it. And I think that representation is key.
And my last note would to be reiterate reading the room, because that is extremely important, especially when you are dealing with the exchange of privilege and power, right? So, recognize where you're privileged and recognize where you're oppressed, and, use that exchange appropriately, especially as an educator. There's always going to be a power dynamic, right? Especially in my role, I sit behind the desk. And so, trying to like kind of alleviate that and making my students feel comfortable with me as an administrator, but also someone that they can trust. And I think that works wonders, especially when there's a racial dynamic there as well. Just naming it like, yes, I am a white individual, you are not. So just name it, right? We see it, right? But a lot of times we don't name it, and naming it kind of like, it addresses it. So it's just like, okay, cool. This person sees me as someone who systemically is oppressed. All right, how can we move forward past that conversation? I think that is the key, or one of the keys, I'll say.
Thank you all so much. I have learned so much from being able to listen to you all speak,
And
and
you are all stunning,
I
and you
feel
are all
like this is a
brave, and you
rallying
are all
call.
beautiful.
I feel like a lot of people have been encouraged, and I'm just so excited to have each and every one of you on this panel to inform us. I will hand it back over to Sarajane, but I really just wanted to thank you all just for your insight, your intelligence, your time, and all of the contributions you have made to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Serena. Hello again, everyone. Can y'all please join me in giving like a virtual round of applause? Send some love to our panelists in the chat. I don't know about y'all, but my heart is so full. My spirit feels so light. Echoing Serena, thank you all so much for your
Yes.
energy and
Everyone
your
is stunning and
insights.
brave and
I'm so
beautiful.
glad that we recorded this so that others who couldn't
We can relive it
be in
again and
attendance
again.
tonight can go back and check it out later. What a blessing it is to know and to get to share space with each of you. So
Indeed.
thank you, and thank you again, Serena, for guiding that conversation. I also want to thank our team behind the scenes, Sierra, Brittany,
See, this is
Valeria,
where it gets
Rhonda.
a
Thank y'all
little
for holding down
iffy
the
when they're
tech and the
doing
chat.
curriculum
Also, thank you to
workshops.
Tilde for providing interpretation support. In a moment, my colleagues.
So there wasn't a lot of like, you know, really kind of golden nugget moments in this presentation. It was pretty typical so far as presentations we watch, but I want everyone to pay attention. If you have kids in school and you see something that says curriculum workshop in K through 5 by an organization about anti-racism, that means that they are integrating these concepts into your kids' schooling starting in kindergarten. Okay? So when you see something like this, every single warning bell in the world should be going off. You're like, why are you talking about this as part of the curriculum? Why aren't you teaching them to read? Why aren't you teaching them to write? Why aren't you teaching them to do math? Why are we talking about our feelings and anti-racism? I literally just want them to learn how to read. That's all I want. If they can do the multiplication tables, you know, bonus, but they have a calculator on their phone now. That's not totally necessary, but it's probably a good idea to learn. You always have to pay attention to stuff like this.
Are going to drop a link to the We Are website, in particular our educator page. Please check that out so you can hear about or register, sign up, get more information about some of our upcoming events, including in just a couple of weeks, our curriculum workshop. Some of you may know about We Are Summer Camp for 1st through 5th graders.
Summer
If you
camp,
are interested in learning about what
anti-racism summer
anti-racism
camp,
looks like in our curriculums, please
summer
join us
camp.
for the curriculum workshop.
That's a
It's
woke
happening
summer
in
camp.
person in Durham, and the registration deadline is October 31st. So don't delay, go ahead and sign up. On November 9th, we will also be holding our Educator Institute Fall Follow-Up. Again, all of this information is available on our website. Thank you, Brittany, for dropping
These
that
people
link.
are
If you have a
training
story
your
that
kids'
you want to tell, and
teachers.
we are proud practitioners of critical race theory and storytelling, particularly for those who have been traditionally or historically marginalized. We
Proud
practice that tenet. And
practitioners
if
of
you got a
critical race
story you want to
theory in
tell
K
or
through
are
5
willing to tell,
education.
consider contributing to our blog. I'll be the person you'll be emailing or talking to about that. So feel free to let me know if you want to submit a piece. Also, oh, yes, that's the fall follow-up on at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, November 9th. We'll kind of be building on this conversation in a lot of ways, identifying what's good here and humanizing student and educator relationships. One last plug. By attending tonight, you have been entered in a chance to win a gift card to see Wakanda Forever. So keep an
Ooh,
eye out on your email and
a
our social
gift
media around
card.
November 11th to see if you win. That's really all that I have. Again, thank you all so
All
much for
right.
making space, for joining us tonight.
That's all we have for the presentation tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It wasn't as woke as some of the presentations we've watched, and I actually think, you know, this was a really productive happy hour. I feel like we all got some good life lessons out of it. I feel like, you know, there is actually stuff we can learn from these people every now and again. But guys, just as a reminder, I will be back tomorrow at there we go, 6 p.m. Not 5 p.m. on Saturdays because it's my weekend too. 6 p.m. And we're going to do Socialism Saturday tomorrow. I don't know what we're watching yet. I'm going to find something extra socialist. Last week was a little disappointing. I know. But we're going to go extra socialist tomorrow at 6 p.m. It will be the most dystopian thing you will watch all week. I promise. I'm going to find a really good one. So join me tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. And please make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are not already. Please make sure you are mounting that like button on the way out the door. This is Happy Hour. I do them every Friday at 5 p.m. where you can grab your drink of choice and join us to watch a woke training. And I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m., guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your night. and we'll see you soon.